Mr. Degrasse Tyson. Third season.
Neil, please.
Oh, Neil, well, thank you.
Yes.
And third season of Cosmos. First one in the 80s.
1980, yes.
And then
second, 2014.
Yeah.
I mean, season is a new term that people use, but Cosmos is such a production that it's hard for me to think of it as, well, let's just do seasons of it.
Okay.
Since they're very significant eggs hatched by Andrian, who's the creative force within it, it's hard for me to think of them as seasons. But if you must, fine.
I was just thinking the 80s, 2006, and then now are you going for
2014.
2014, okay. 6 years ago.
34 years between 1980, 2014, and that, of course, was 6 years ago.
And that's an exponential increase in the
In the rate?
Yeah.
Yes, I guess 34 to 6. So the next one would be in 2 years, maybe.
Well, good luck. The storytelling, I've seen 2 episodes already. The storytelling is
13, yes.
It's again what we love about Cosmos, what we like in
DNA
Cosmos.
of Cosmos.
Yeah, it's this. You have
I
this.
say DNA.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you. Come to my shows. It's this broad view of not only the planet and the cosmos as a whole in time, but also humanity. You go to what you could say could be the cradle of science. You visited one of the oldest labs in the world.
Yeah. So the storytelling involves going to places around the world that mattered, that were pivotal in the history of science, and those places, the authenticity of them, I think, bring meaning and weight to the storytelling. But also, even more important than going on location, I think, is the depth and emotion of the story intermingled with the science that we are sharing. And if you tell a story that has no emotion, then the story is empty. The story, you don't take it with you as when you finish. Whereas Cosmos, such a significant part of how they are conceived, is to seamlessly connect all of the branches of science, the chemistry, the geology, the physics. We go into the quantum, for example, which was a challenge to visualize, of course, given the weird things that happen.
And the moment you visualize it, it collapses.
We have
special devices.
Yeah, we have special ways we get around the quantum constraints.
No strings attached.
Yeah. Oh, he's good. If you jiggle it at the right frequency, you can attach it. So I think when you blend them and fold them into meaning, then it's hard to think of Cosmos as a documentary anymore. It's something else. We need another word for it.
I know, and I think maybe this was lacking from science communication for a while. I was very often under the impression that people want to be very objective and educational, and that they were kind of afraid of the passion that is in Cosmos, because they think we're scientists, we have to be objective. But
perhaps they were afraid, or perhaps they didn't know how.
That could be, yeah.
And maybe the not knowing how became the excuse for being afraid.
Okay, yeah.
And it's easy to be afraid of something that you're unfamiliar with, or that you have never thought about before. But Andrian she's scientifically literate and emotionally literate.
Yeah.
And you combine those and bring science expertise layered on top of that. That's a potent combination. And but you're right. I think in science we like to think of the enterprise as very rigid, and here's the curriculum, here's the lesson plan. But in your professional activities, reaching the public, that what can be more important than that is just inspiring people to want to learn more. And the inspiration does not require a curriculum. It requires you have some fun, gain some insights, introduce meaning in places that people perhaps didn't see it. And then they walk away with a new outlook and a new perspective on all those subjects that you address, and they can take it and expand their knowledge further on their own.
Well, what you just described is something that I think Carl Sagan was aiming for with the first series, and that now we can just measure it. The amount of people who have been inspired by this first series and got into scientific careers.
Repeat with me: billions and billions of people.
Billions and billions.
Billions and billions of people.
But one of these people was Seth MacFarlane, for example. He was really passionate about this first series, and he also played a role in getting it back on screen.
Yeah, at the time we were Steve Soder, who was a co-author of not only 1980 but also the 2014 Cosmos. She, and I were trying to get that next season made, and the other one was so long ago that some people had forgotten, and other outlets, they said, we want to bring in these new writers. This is a new time. And Anne stayed strong with her resolve that Cosmos is not just something you hand off to people just to, with new, that's not what Cosmos is. And not many people understood this. So, in fact, we knocked on many doors. And one day I'm having lunch with Seth MacFarlane. And I thought, well, maybe I'll see if he would fund a pilot. And then we can make the pilot exactly as we want. Then people will see why we want to continue it in this way, right? It would be a demonstration of what the new Cosmos would be. And because he surely had enough money just to experiment in this way. And at the time he said, no, I have a better idea. Why don't I take it to Fox? And I said, okay, that's the worst idea I ever heard in my life. This is not good. He doesn't understand. He can't. And then I said, well, wait a minute. Fox is a huge operation. There's Fox Business. There's Fox News. There's Fox Sports. There's Fox Flagship. There's Fox, the 20th Century Fox Films. There's Fox Studio. And I realized Fox has many avenues that lead directly to it in the demographics of the population that ingests television. So that if it appeared on Fox, more people would have access to this content than ever before.
This is a very broad series, visually and in storytelling.
Yes,
it's very accessible.
I'm just saying, in that moment, I said to myself, I went from, I don't know how long it took in my head. It felt like 10 minutes, but it was probably 10 seconds. I went from thinking, that's the worst idea I ever heard, to that's the best idea I've ever heard. And so he took it to Fox, and Fox said, They were watching the rising popularity of science at the time. They looked at my following. They looked at the legacy of the original. And they said, all right, let's do it. And then we said, okay, what kind of control are you after? That's what you... And they said, well, we don't really have much experience making documentaries. We like what we saw from 1980. Just bring that up to date. We'll be fine. And it was like, okay. So Seth brought it to Fox.
That's amazing how one of my comedy heroes, then one of my sitcom heroes, and then Andrian, who worked on, I think, the Golden Record that went to space.
Voyager 1, yes.
This is kind of an Avengers team.
Avengers team.
It's like superheroes from all the angles come together to make...
Iron Man.
We only need an athlete, maybe Lionel Messi or something, and fit it in there, On your travels, you were in...
Thor too, if I have to be.
I'll fetch you the hammer.
Actually, you know what I really want to be? I want to be Black Widow.
Oh,
I just want that flexibility. I don't want to be able to kick ass in a very flexible way.
okay, yeah, flexibility. Yeah, it's long gone for me too. I can only dream. You visited Amsterdam too for the
Yes,
series.
we did, and many countries, and I particularly enjoyed Amsterdam. I just want to show off that for this evening, because we have a screening this evening, I'll be wearing this tie, and this is my Van Gogh.
Well,
Did I say Van Gogh?
Van Gogh. Yeah, we have a lot of the g sounds. My foreign friends always say Dutch is not a language; it's a disease of the throat. So that's what we do. I've got a Van Gogh NASA sweater.
Okay.
I'll wear it tonight.
That's a logo in for the.
And then the Van Gogh around it, yeah. But I think we often forget in Belgium and in Holland that this history of science was there too. With Spinoza, Van Leeuwenhoek.
Exactly. So the stories that we tell are drawn from all over the world. And I think Americans need to be reminded of this because so many of us who grew up, myself included, in the era of the space program, we think of America as sort of leading the world in science and exploration, which we did for a chunk of time there. But then you forget that there was a time when America was mostly farmland.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world was inventing the Industrial Revolution and science, and there were discoveries all around the world. And so a proper telling of the history of science requires going all over the world, to Africa, to Asia, Europe. Fortunately, the budget was sufficient to accommodate that.
Okay.
I'll tell you something, don't tell anybody. We couldn't go to all places.
Okay.
The budget didn't do it. And one of the places we green screened was the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. And I live like 4 blocks from the Brooklyn Bridge. And so I'm in front of a green screen pretending I'm leaning on the railing of the Brooklyn Bridge. And I said, damn.
You did the right accent, so that was New York accent.
Yeah, New York. Yeah, I got the New York accent.
Maybe to close off, let's take a look at the future. There's especially in space exploration, these are exciting times. This morning, NASA and ESA launched a solar orbiter. And I think many of us science enthusiasts are looking forward to the big telescopes, both in space and on Earth, that are coming up, James Webb. And where are we? Very large, extremely large, or ridiculously large? I can't keep...
Overwhelmingly large.
Overwhelmingly large.
Telescopes.
But the most exciting thing about this, I think, is that we can analyze atmospheres of exoplanets with these devices. I was talking to Alan Stovan 2 years ago, former head of science of NASA, and I asked her... Ellen Stovan, yeah. And I asked her, do you think I will live to see the day that we have kind of circumstantial evidence of this atmosphere of producing life? And she says...
I hope she said yes.
She said, I expect it within 10 to 20 years. I was amazed by this.
Yeah. So how long ago did she say?
2 years ago.
Yeah, good. So there's a new sub-industry. A cottage industry is the expression I think I'd like to use. Within astrophysics, where the telescopes are large enough, the detectors are sensitive enough, the ability to analyze is good enough that for planets that pass in front of the star that they orbit, between us and the star, then the light from the star goes through the atmosphere before it comes to you. And anytime that happens, the light picks up some of the chemical signatures of the atmosphere itself. And so you get to detect what's going on in the atmosphere. And we've come to learn that there's a suite of molecules that are evidence that hint at the possibility of life on the surface of that planet. So we call them biomarkers, one of my favorite terms of the search for life in the universe. No, we don't have telescopes to see dinosaurs walking on the surface, but the secondary evidence of life can be compelling. For example, surely you know that oxygen in our atmosphere. I have to tell the story real quickly. I'm a fan of the original Star Trek series because that's how old I am. All right, I'm first run in the 1960s. I saw Star Trek, And you ever notice that in Star Trek, they never wear spacesuits? You ever notice that?
On the surface of the...
They visit planets, they never wear spacesuits.
True, yeah.
Okay? Now, you know why? Because they check in advance. Okay. Oh, it has an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere. So then they land.
Yeah.
Leaving you to think that all you have to do is look around long enough and you'll find a planet with an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere that you could just land on. That's not how this works. The oxygen is not just some chance chemical composition of the atmosphere of a planet. The oxygen is created by the life that's on the planet. If you took away all life on Earth today, especially the plant life, which generates the oxygen, if you took that away today, all the oxygen, which is chemically active, will get absorbed into other elements and get systematically removed from the atmosphere. Oxygen is not a stable chemical presence in anybody's atmosphere. Something has to keep making it. And on Earth, it is life. So if you find another planet and you see an oxygen signature in the atmosphere, if you're a betting person, you say, hey, the over-under on that is that there's life. And there are other molecules that are also unstable by themselves unless somebody keeps generating them. Methane is one of them, depending on the temperature of the air. Methane is the product of anaerobic metabolism.
Yeah.
So it's metabolism without the presence of oxygen, and we have metabolism in the presence of oxygen. So both of these would tell you that there's something going on that's worthy of further investigation. So that's what she was referring to, and I would say easily in the next 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
But what will this do to us, this strong, because, well, it's never a direct evidence, but this secondary evidence of...
It's evidence. It's evidence.
Life exists somewhere else. It will probably be single cell something, but well, for the Drake's equation, it does a lot. This first complete unknown factor. What are the odds that just cellular life emerges somewhere will be unknown?
Yeah, and it'll be another sort of notch in the. Actually, to use Anne Druyan's term, one of the great demotions of the human platform that we've always held ourselves to. Oh, we are the pinnacle, or Earth is a pinnacle, or the sun, Earth is a... And if I know there are other suns, there are other planets, there's other life with bigger brains than we have, even on Earth. There could be other life in the universe. That would be a next step in the reduction of the ego that you might be walking around the universe displaying, that life somewhere else. And we could say that it could signal a change in the human condition that we cannot foresee.
Like the pale blue dot did once.
Yeah, that's another shift in our understanding of ourselves.
Perspective.
Yeah, it's a perspective change. Yeah. The pale blue dot. There was the Earth seen from the moon, but you can at least see the continents. The pale blue dot, it's a few pixels.
Where everything happened that we know.
Everything happened. Those few pixels.
Okay.
So that's a humbling... By the way, possible worlds as a term in this does not simply reference other planets. That would be the obvious interpretation of that subtitle. Among the 13 episodes, there are worlds hidden in plain sight. The quantum world. There's the network of plant communication, the mycelium.
The tree internet.
Beneath the feet.
Yeah.
Okay. An internet that predates our internet. Electrochemical pathways from tree to tree, plant to plant. I'm going to misquote the phrase, but we've heard it, that the value of travel and exploration is that when you return, you get to see your home for the very first time. with this new perspective that you glean from having had that journey. So not only do we visit other worlds and imagine Earth turn bad or Earth turn good, depending on what kind of shepherds we are of our own civilization, but the worlds that exist around us that we've been blind to because of our own ego. These, once you see them, we'd like to think will bring you a renewed and fresh perspective.
That's what we can expect from
That is exactly
watching this series.
what you can expect.
Thank you very much. This was a pleasure.
Excellent. I'm delighted to meet you. We're partners in this effort to bring science and the universe down to earth on stage and screen.
Lawrence Krauss once said, "You're doing God's work." When I told him I'm a science communicator.
It's great when an atheist says that.
Yeah, that's right. I've got a little gift for you that I don't know if you're going to use. It's one of the t-shirts of our Science Communication Collective. It's a Nerdfluencer.
Nerdfluencer, very good.
Because that's what we do. We influence, of course, the people who are interested and the nerds.
Hashtag Nerdfluencer.
Yes, that's it.